I get the privilege today to sit with my great friend who I call AP. We always do APGP because that's our initials, but that's how we communicate for many years. Anthony Petz is with me. And as you know, every podcast starts with a word, and I do my best to pick the word that encapsulates the topic and who I'm with. And the word that I've chosen for Anthony is the word humility. I think it's your superpower. I think you very graciously, quietly bring yourself into situations, and immediately your nature, your humble nature, takes any spotlight off of you and puts it on who you're with. You are the guy that asks all the questions and not a guy that talks a lot about himself. So even more so, how great to have you here so I can pin you down like a lab moth and make you talk about yourself.
All right.
So thank you for making the trip here. Take me way back. I want to hear some history. I want to hear where you were raised, siblings, and what that world looked like when you were a young kid.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Pullman, Washington, which I know you know, but it's a small farming / college community. It's where Washington State University is over in Eastern Washington. Yeah. When I grew up there, it was 15,000 people in the summer and then 25,000 to 30,000 people when all the students came back. So it was kind of like two different towns all in one.
Right.
But grew up initially, probably about half of my childhood spent out in the middle of wheat fields around nothing, and then the other half kind of in the town there. But 2 brothers, mom and dad, divorced when I was in about 6th grade. My father was a commercial crab fisherman, so he was, out doing that about 6 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. I would call us probably lower middle class. We didn't need anything, but we didn't have everything handed to us either. Like we still had to work for the things that we wanted that were maybe extras, or wasn't a lot of excess there,
And your brothers, you are number what in the line?
I'm the oldest of the 3. So my other one is 2.5 years younger than me, my I guess middle brother, and then the youngest is 7 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you have any chance to learn the crab fishing world from your dad as a part of that journey with your dad?
No, I learned a lot about sports fishing, rod and reel type stuff, but I wanted to go with my dad and always thought that would be cool, but that was shut down pretty quick. And in hindsight, I've learned that just wasn't an environment that he wanted to bring his son into. I don't know that he really liked being there to begin with. It's dangerous, but also I think the type of folks you get there weren't really the type of folks he was trying to expose his son to. So
right,
yeah,
right, yeah, a little defense on his part.
Yeah,
perhaps.
I think he was playing a little defense there.
Tell me how those open spaces of Eastern Washington, because if anybody's ever been to Eastern Washington, much less the Palouse, which kind of redefines open spaces.
Yeah.
It's as far as you can see, rolling wheat fields.
Yeah.
Tell me about that in terms of the way you saw the world.
Well, I think Pullman is very much in a bubble in that way. I mean, it's almost like living on an island, because you're right. You look around and you don't see much. In fact, when I first moved over to Western Washington, it was freaking me out how you could just never get away from anybody. You always saw a house or two anywhere that you were. Whereas over there, you get out, just outside of town, all of a sudden it's like there's just fields. There's nothing there. But how it affected the way I saw the world, I don't know. I mean, it made for a fun childhood because it just felt like everything was Pullman. It just felt like everything the world had to offer was there pretty much. And there's a small, tight-knit community, and I think, it definitely instills that kind of small town feeling, vibe in you, where you learn that everyone can find out what you're up to pretty quickly. Your mom can find out what you're up to pretty quickly. But it's smiling at everybody all the time, I mean, I used to love, and I still love going back there, and as you're driving by somebody, you just give them a wave or a nod or a smile, and everyone makes that eye contact as they drive by you and do the same thing. And it's just friendly, it's just, I like that. I like feeling like you belong to a community and everyone is kind of in it together, if that makes sense.
I have sort of a theory, because I've thought about this about you quite often, is just that this demeanor that we've already discussed, this humble, respectful, calm demeanor. And I've seen you in situations where we had a lot going on, and you still do, but I mean, working one-on-one, with your business and a lot going on, but the calm, it's almost like it's hardwired in you to just that calm sense. I'm wondering if that space, if that actual physical space that you were raised in created that. I wonder how much of our own chaos we open the door to, I guess is the question I ask,
Yeah, I've never thought about it, but it's very possible. I mean, I do remember there were times being out there in the middle of nowhere where I just sat and I recognized that this little bird flies by, and that bird's just going about his day, and nothing outside of what's in that bird's immediate vicinity matters. And all of a sudden I realized that nothing outside of my immediate vicinity really mattered. It is all manufactured in our heads, right? Like there's a whole world out there that's doing things that, quote, matter to them. But at the end of the day, that bird finding his next worm or, next stick for his nest. And I think we do lose perspective a lot. And so, yeah, maybe there's some calm to be had and perspective of what we actually need and what actually matters.
Yeah, I think so. Was it sort of an assumption that if it all just kept going this way that you would end up at Washington State University? Was it sort of an expectation of being a local from Pullman that you had to check in here?
I think it was more just me being more or less just kind of inept at the time. Like WSU was more like an extension of high school. So yes, kind of, but it was also just that at the time I was just kind of I was the type of kid that was just like along for the ride. I didn't have a lot of ambition at that age. I don't think I could have got into any other university, frankly. I'm pretty sure my friend's mom in the admissions department somehow snuck me in, because when I got the year-in acceptance letter, I was kind of like, really? Okay.
The biggest accomplishment so far. Huh?
I guess I'll just go there then. So, but I did have a lot of friends that went there, and I think that's part of what made it an easy next step, But yeah, I wasn't a kid with a lot of ambition where I wanted to go to this university or have this experience. It just kind of was, I was pretty immature at that age, so I think it was just a natural progression of somewhere to go for me.
You've built on, we all do, I guess whether we know it or not, but there's things that were installed with your environment, with your parents, when you were young. Think on some of those things that you've ratified, that you, as an adult, you go, I was taught this, I believe that, I use it every day, it has become me as an adult, and I know where it came from. Can you think of any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a lot, but I think one that served me a lot that I think about from when I was a kid is just this maybe irrational belief that I could do anything, I actually remember, I think one reason why I feel like this is true is I remember being like 7 years old and talking with one of my buddies and just dead set convinced that I could kick Mike Tyson's ass, like I never even watched him box. I played the video game. I knew he was the heavyweight champion of the world, but I'm just like, yeah, like why wouldn't I be able to kick Mike Tyson's ass, and it just never occurred to me that I couldn't,
Right.
So definitely irrational. And, maybe I've gotten more rational as I've gotten older, but still, I think part of that is my parents. They never really governed me in anything. They were never, fantasy like, but definitely some of that you can do anything you put your mind to. And I always believed that I could. And I think that served me, whether it was irrational or naive or not. I'd rather be the type of person that believes he can do something and then learns otherwise through experience than to be the person that doesn't believe he can do something and that's his reality, period. You know?
As you know it.
Yeah. I think the other things, though, is just believing that I was loved. I think I always felt like I had that safety net. Going back to what we really need, we come up with all these things we need, but at the end of the day, there's just a lot of security just knowing that if everything else falls apart, I had my mom and my dad loved me. They always had me. I had my God, and that outside of those things, I just didn't. Sure, things get stressful, but I think when you're grounded in those types of things that I think really matter, I think you're a lot less afraid of falling,
Can you think of anything that was wired in, it could be around anything, that as an adult you've had to remodel or maybe even rip out and replace with a better installation for you and where you're at as an adult and your business? And can you think of anything that's had to have been adjusted in that initial wiring?
Yeah. Man, I'm sure there's tons of things. I think what's hard about that is, for me, it's like you come up against these obstacles that are just so big, and then you overcome them and you rewire, and then I forget what that old wiring was. But one that I think about was, I don't know, I think a lot of people, especially maybe in Western society, feel like they have to do everything on their own. We have the idea of being the John Wayne, take on the whole band of bandits, do everything by yourself. We can do it by ourselves, so we should do it by ourselves. And I think that was something that when I was younger, I really thought and wanted to do. And I think it was just purely egotistical, and it was very limiting. Anytime I've experienced a great success, it's been because I've enlisted help. And I became more successful. I learned more, which led to more success. I had more fun doing it that way. And so I think that was the biggest thing is just forgetting about trying to, for whatever reason, just do it on my own, Yeah. There's just no reason for it. It's...
I had the privilege of meeting your dad once. You lined up the opportunity for my dad and brother to meet your dad and deer hunt on his property, his ranch right now, which is sort of in that same sort of feeling area. Wide open spaces, and I can get a feel from your dad of that handling things yourself, right? I'm going to build it myself from scratch. I'm going to manage it myself. I've got it. And I'm very comfortable being by myself, right? That I've got a lot of acres here, and that's fine with me. I don't need to see people.
Right.
And I think that's truly probably who he is. And with well-meaning, there's a lot of benefits for you feeling that same environment and things. And yet with everything, there's the downside. And as you mentioned, the taking on complicated business endeavors to think, well, I've got to do it all myself.
Yeah.
Well, you're only going to do so much.
That's
and
right.
so I think that this is when we face those things that created a limitation where we didn't really realize it was a limitation until we were limited.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right?
Until
And you
you
go,
experience
"Whoa."
what it could have been.
Right.
Yeah.
What have I got to adjust here?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's I think that's a big deal. Did your brothers follow your path to go to Washington State University?
No, the middle brother, he actually ended up at Western. And then my youngest brother, he stayed in Pullman for a while, but he was working with my dad right out of college on the oil rigs in North Dakota, Wyoming, and lives in Montana now. But yeah. So you didn't have to go to WSU.
Right. It wasn't a requirement. I was sort of raised with this. I don't know that it was ever spoken, but because my dad went to the University of Washington, he bleeds purple and gold.
Yeah.
And so it sort of was like, hey, if you have choices of where to go, you better highly consider this one because otherwise, I'm your enemy if you go to Wazoo, right?
Yeah, I don't want to hate you.
So I think that's crazy. So what ended up bringing you to Bellingham, which is much, much larger than Pullman, but still a relatively small town?
Yeah, well, I guess the precipice for me going there was that like I said, my brother went to Western Washington, and so as I said, when I went to WSU, it was really a lack of direction. It was just, I'll just go to WSU. But by the time I was ready to graduate from WSU, I was ready to go somewhere else and experience something else. But I wasn't really sure what or where, so I was considering all these different things. And my brother was going to Western, like I said, up in Bellingham, and I was out of college, didn't have anything to do, so I figured I'd go up there and hang out with him for a week, and I did. It was in June, and I remember it was just this stretch of like perfect sunny weather that whole week, which,
the 1 week.
Yeah, and everything's so green it's always pretty green up there, but that time of year, right, everything's just coming out, just bursting with color and vibrant everywhere. I'm like, man, this place is beautiful. And then he told me that he was going to be having a son as well. And he had lined up a practice interview at this job because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I wanted to get, you do these practice interviews to get good at interviewing for the job you do want. And I interviewed, and I ended up really liking the owner of the business and thought it actually could be a good experience for me. So all those things kind of combined for me to say, yeah, why not? We'll hang out in Bellingham for a little bit and see how it goes. And we just have been there ever since. That was 2004, so it's almost 20 years now.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And where did you meet your bride?
I don't even know, but I know I met her in Pullman. Michaela's kind of like, you don't really remember growing your finger. It's just kind of always been there. That's kind of how Michaela's been. So she grew up in Pullman as well. I don't really have a memory of, meeting Michaela. It's just, she's just kind of always been part of being in Pullman, but we started dating when we were in high school, juniors in high school, and took a short little break there in college. It wasn't very long, maybe like a year, but have been together basically since then.
So this first job, when you came to Bellingham, and here we go, right? The interview went well, and you thought you could tell me about the first real job out of college.
Yeah, so the interview went well. I really liked the owner. It was for a copy machine sales company, so kind of like a Xerox, but it was a smaller, more mom and pop type business, not corporate. I think they had, 20 employees, give or take. But what I liked is that the owner was this like hardcore sales guys. And I don't mean hardcore like sell it. I mean like really interested and invested in the art of selling. And I had kind of adopted this mantra of at the time of work to learn, don't work to earn. And so I wanted to get a job where I could gain skills that would be useful to me in, future endeavors. And I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And so I felt like sales would be a great thing for me. I was, timid, shy, had a hard time getting outside of, going and doing that type of interaction. And so I just thought it would be a great next step in business education for me. And so I did take that job and did copier sales for 7 years. And it was a good experience. Maybe a year or two longer than I would have liked, but I got a great experience out of it.
Well, and somewhere in that time frame, we met, and there was some pre-existing momentum, at least of action and thought on the world of real estate. That train left the station while you were in this job selling copy machines. Tell me how did real estate merge into the game plan of life back then? When did that happen, and how did that happen?
I think I became interested in the idea of real estate somewhere in college. I didn't necessarily know that would be my sole focus down the road, but somewhere along the lines in there, I knew I didn't want to do copier sales. Like I said, that was a short-term thing, but somewhere along the lines, I decided that real estate made sense for me, that it was a good fit for my personality, my skill set, and what my goals were. And so, once I made that decision and commitment, started looking for ways to make that happen.
So you just said three things that okay, real estate was a good fit, and one of the check marks in there was it was a good fit for the goals you had.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me about those early on goals. What were the goals?
My primary focus was financial freedom, and what I mean by that is the ability to have an income that was relatively passive. I never really, people have these careers or callings, that they feel like they were meant for, and I never felt like I found that, and I struggled with it a lot, and so I just came to the conclusion, well, if I don't know what I want to do for a living, why don't I stop worrying about a living, and then I can just figure out what I want to do, right? So for me, finding something where I just didn't have to worry about the money side of life anymore, and then I could just worry about the life side of life was kind of my focus. And so why real estate seemed like it made sense was because it offered, it offered a relatively passive income, and it seemed like something that I could figure out, and there was just so many things I liked about it. There's just so many benefits to real estate that appealed to me even from the beginning. You get the potential long-term appreciation. So, you're not just looking at that income, right? You're actually getting a built-in 401k type scenario too while you're doing that. It lends itself to entrepreneurship, right? You can actually take something, improve it, do something to it, as opposed to just buying let's say a stock for a pretty simple comparison, right? There's not much you're doing to that. You buy it and you hope someone else does something valuable to it. I'm sure people listening to this understand the benefits of real estate, so I won't continue going down that road. But those are the things that appealed to me primarily.
But what I think is so interesting about this, and I want to back up and just sort of freeze frame this for a second, that it wasn't like I'm looking at this as the end all. This is going to be on my legacy tombstone of I was this real estate guy. It was approach to let's get the money need side out of the equation. As long as I don't know what the bigger calling might be, or this may be it. But let's get step one out of the way, which opens the door to whatever else I may want to dedicate the rest of my life to.
Yeah.
I think that people get frozen with decisions sometimes where they feel like they've got to see the vision all the way to the end, and that this has got to be that one arrow that cures it all. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's how life is. I think we navigate to the next plateau, and then we assess, and we can say, well, I want to get the financial need thing out of the way. Mm-hmm. And here's how I'm going to do that. And on the way, I'm paying attention for opportunities and where my heart's at and where the life is going and all those things. But it's that you can't steer a parked car.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's you're in motion doing something that's going to lead you to the next ability to see the next direction. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really a valuable piece there. That and one objective at some point right at that time frame became, okay, I'm more interested in this than I am my W-2 or my commission copy sales job. Mm-hmm. I want to do enough of this to where I can step from this train that's going onto this train and do it full time. Mm-hmm. Even though it still may not be the whole all-in-one picture, there was a decision made there that this one I want to get going faster so I can step from this working this full-time job into my life to the real estate. Mm-hmm. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah. No, you're nailing it.
Yeah, so was that a number figure? Was it I need enough relatively passive income from real estate to replace my base pay, as it were, as a copy machine salesperson, and at that point I'm going to make the jump? Is that roughly how that went?
That's how I thought it would go. I don't think it really did. I mean, yes and no. You know, It wasn't like, well, I have $0 in the bank and zero income coming in. Let's just make the jump and hope for the best. You know, I mean, there was some financial forethought put into it, but I mean, initially, ideally, at the time, I would have liked to have had that be the case, but it really wasn't. We had a little income coming in through real estate. My wife was working, Michaela was working also, so we had some income there. And then I had some money in the bank. But I think, going back to your point about it being less about figuring everything out, it just felt like an experience I could have. You know, I had enough money in the bank and we had enough income coming in that I knew we could sustain for a little while, at least 6 months or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that I also knew that I just didn't want to be in this job anymore. It turned into a job. You know, it wasn't a learning experience anymore. It was just something that I was gaining income from, and that wasn't very fulfilling anymore. Mm-hmm. And
had that served its purpose? The objective was learning and growth, not cash. Right. You stated that. So did you feel like you garnered out of that opportunity what you went there for?
Absolutely, yeah. And it was a really valuable experience for everything that would come to follow, certainly. And even in ways I didn't anticipate. Like, for one, I really met a lot of people in the community, and I became a part of the community through that, which was really helpful, you know. But so yes, it served its purpose. But yeah, it reached its plateau, it run its course, and I think, 90% of what was to be learned from that job had been learned. So,
would you, as you stand right now, of course, this is an evolutionary question, but at that point, it sounds as though the owner of the copy machine opportunity, that he was a great influence in your life.
Yeah.
Can you think on the influences of your life, something you've read and learned a lot from? Could be a person that you watched and modeled, or someone like this. Can you give me a few influences at this point that were significant in your life?
At that point in my life, like kind of a grown up.
Yeah. Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. So his name was Ron Taylor. He would be the first main one, and he was huge. You know, he a lot of just philosophy around opportunity and around. He was just great. You know, I mean, there's just so many things that I could go down that road with. But certainly, like I said, the sales side of it, I learned a lot from him. People, understanding people and that type of thing. Man, I mean, the other big ones just it has to be you, Greg. You were and are just still such an influence on my life. And, you know, Ron, the copier machine boss, right? He brought me to a place that I don't think I could have gotten to. He brought me to a place that I couldn't have gotten to on my own. And certainly I feel the same way about you. I mean, I was working really hard to figure out how to make it work. And going back to this, you know, we all need help. You know, I was trying to kind of piece things together and finding some success, but man, once I met you and really started, you know, investing in what you had to offer, you know, when I say you had to offer, I don't really mean it like that. I think really when I started wrapping my mind around who you were and your thoughts on life and your thoughts on success and what it really was, not only did it resonate with me a lot, which I think was the start of that relationship having a big impact, but it taught me a lot. You know, I think it really leveled me up, not only in business and in real estate, but as a man. You know, I think there was a lot. You dovetail things so well. You know, I learned a lot about being a person and about being a friend and someone in the community and just being a man. You know, so there was a lot that I learned there. So thank you for that, first of all.
Well, I appreciate that. Isn't it interesting though, as we all think about it, that what we do and who we are, they're in the same box, right? We can't separate them. No. And any disconnection you or I have ever felt is where something seems to have flown out of the box, like this isn't us, or where did that come from, or, you know, where something is going to take us to the table of debrief because it wasn't in sync, right? And we all go through those things too, where you where did that come from, and you retool and rethink. But in our best day, who we are just flows into what we do, and they're all in sync. To think on great endeavor without looking at what you've got to work with in our mind and your soul, and you know, without that analysis, how do you even approach the equation? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think it's doing an injustice to not address that side of things. You know, it's just I look at like coaching basketball as something I've done for a long time, and I've been coached in basketball for a long time. And I think the most meaningful relationships I've had, either as a athlete being coached or as a coach coaching, are the ones where it's not just about basketball. Like, basketball is great. I love basketball. But I think what has made me really love basketball, I should say this, I always liked playing basketball, but what made me love basketball, like in my soul love basketball, are the lessons that I took from it, you know, the growth as a person that I took from it. And that's what I've loved about my journey in real estate as well. And that was kind of like the unforeseen journey that popped up in there was, it was always about playing basketball. It was always about finding the financial freedom and acquiring real estate. But the growth that comes through those things, I think is what is where the richness and the real value comes from. I mean, the other things are great too, but
I think that, at least it's my hope, Anthony, that, how do I say this? I don't even know that people know what Power Players is, but an intensive that I've taught many, many times takes the approach that this is as much learning how to open your mind to possibility and think about things in ways that people normally don't, as it is the technical tools that we learn and the deal structuring and the routes, and all of that is mechanical and left brain engineering, but the right brain ability to connect with people, to listen, to pull out what they're saying, what they're not saying, what they're really wanting, that deeper right brain ability to extract the puzzle pieces that then can be presented as solutions. To me, that's a much higher level understanding of this than just, here's a lease option, here's how it works.
Yeah.
Here, go use this sometime. It's
Right.
like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It's the incorporation of how we think that then translates into what we see, what we present, what we propose. How did you hear about Power Players? Who did we know that connected us, and where did that journey begin? I've taught it 36 times, so there's a lot of people that I love them all individually, but what Power Players you went to and exactly who was in that group,
Yeah.
it's getting a little fuzzy.
Yeah, it's definitely a little fuzzier than it used to be. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think we initially met at the local real estate investment association club up in Bellingham. You'd come in and gave a talk up there, and that's how we were connected originally. And then Power Players came, probably six months or less. I don't know. I don't really know when we actually met, but within 6 months, I would say I was in Power Players in Maui with you. And that was a hard decision for me to arrive at because I didn't have a lot of money then, but I felt like there was something, I've been going to that club for a while, and I've been reading all sorts of books, and you can find seminars and lectures and all those things for days. And, I'd subscribed to some of them, but again, didn't have a lot of money. And Power Players at the time seemed really expensive to me. So I'm like, oh geez, what do I do? And then I was like, you know what? I'm sick of like finding mediocre success right now. And I feel like this is something that can level me up. So finally it's like, screw it. I'm just going to do it. And I did it. And for me, it was an amazing experience. I mean, everything leading up to it was great. The anticipation, but then just the preparation for it, trying to get ready to make sure I could get the most out of Power Players was really valuable. The experience itself, it's hard to describe, but it was really, it was just an extraordinary experience. Yeah. The connections that I made at Power Players was great. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like being on a team, right? Like you just have the same experience together, and you're just bonded through that experience automatically. And then afterwards too, you talked about the fraternity, and that's there. The support system that you get after it, I think was unique and valuable to me. But again, like, all those things in the context of business and advancing with business is great. But again, it just adds a richer experience because they're actual friendships that I think just adds to the educational aspect and makes it, just richer.
Yeah. Do you remember we got an opportunity post Power Players at a chapter to really dig in one-on-one, and really get some serious goals and objectives down. Do you remember a deal that the puzzle pieces, the tools applied to? They went, they closed, they worked, where you thought to yourself, okay, I'm on to something here. This I can extrapolate this. I can see where this is going. Was there a tool, a negotiation, something that we don't really know things until we do them?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get this now.
Right.
Can you remember that deal?
I mean, when you put it and when you frame it that way, I think the one that comes to mind is probably the first owner finance deal that I put together, where I felt like I had actually found something that will cash flow in Bellingham, which felt like this kind of elusive unicorn thing to me for a long time. I'd been tracking it, but I'd found so much failure in trying to find that actual type of deal. So that what you're describing to me is a little house that I'd sent the bird letters out. But funny enough, so this got to the owner, and she gave it to her real estate agent. They were about to list it, and I thought that was the kiss of death, because that had happened to me enough times where I'm like, oh, I know exactly where this is going to go. But at the time, I was just like, well, I'm following every potential bird, until that thing's flown so far away that the lead can't reach it.
Right.
So I'm like, let's go, let's do it. So I'm doing it. I'm talking to him like, oh, this real estate agent actually is kind of receptive. The agent just seemed like, and this is in, what was it, like 2009, I think, is when this happened. The market was, had gotten pretty depressed at that point. And so this agent was just like, hey, if we can put a deal together, let's put a deal together. And so I sat down with my little one-page sheet of here's kind of the bullet points of what I'm thinking, Mr. Real Estate Agent. And he's like, yeah, okay, I think we can do something like this. And I'm like, oh, really? We can we? Like, I don't think you're supposed to say that. No one else said that. Anyway, so it progressed and it all came together. It was like a 10% down deal. I think the interest rate was something like 4% interest only on like a 10-year note. And when I looked at the numbers once, I got it all fixed up, and it did take some work, and I did it all. It was like every night after work, I would go work, 4 or 5 hours on it every weekend. And this is while Michaela's pregnant, right? Not pregnant, but she's pregnant. So the clock's ticking a little bit. I'm like, I got to get this done. But once all that dust had settled and everything was going, I had to rent it out, and I got to look at those numbers. I was like, wow, we did it, and that worked, and it kind of worked the way I'd been said it would, or the way it had been said to supposed to work. I'm not saying that right. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, it was not smooth. Like I skipped over a lot of details there. It was very clunky. I knew what I was doing, but I also didn't in a way where I'm like, okay, I know how this is kind of supposed to fit together, but I'm still not super confident in this. Right. But it came together, and then I felt like that success made sense to me, and then it's funny because I don't feel like I have any like big home run deals where I'm like, this is the best deal I ever did. But that deal, in a sense, is the best deal I ever did because it's been replicated so many times after. And, I don't want to say perfected, but certainly, what's the word I'm looking for?
Improved upon each time.
Improved upon, right. Yeah, honed, to the point where, I've done better deals than that, but not that much better in that they were done pretty much the same way,
I think, Anthony, when something goes all the way to home plate, it was by design, it was by intention, it came out, you look at it. What's happening in that moment is that, although we don't really see it that way, but it is happening, is that our belief system is getting solidified. Now our approach to the next thing, even if it's subconsciously, is done differently. because our beliefs have been grounded now. It's real. This isn't theory anymore. It's real. It can happen. This isn't a unicorn. You've caught one and put it in a cage and studied it.
Yeah.
And so it's real. And then all of a sudden, that intention to say, okay, now I know what these look like. We've both spent a lot of time staring at a side hill with binoculars, looking at things. And, it's interesting that when you first go out there looking for animals out in the middle of nowhere, if you've never seen one in the wild, why is it this guy sees everything? Because he's been out here all the time. He knows what they look like.
That's right.
He's seen them before. He's gotten real close.
Exactly true.
But when you haven't seen one, is that one? Is that one? And you look at a lot of stumps.
Yeah, rocks.
A lot of rocks that you're sure are something. But then you really see one and your eyes go, oh, that's what that looks like from 400 yards. And it's real. And boy, this is no rock. It's walking and you're watching it and you study it. And what does it really look like given the background? And all of a sudden now it's real. And then all of a sudden, because of that, you start seeing things everywhere that were probably there before, but you just didn't have the eyes for it.
Yeah.
That's how our beliefs play themselves out. And so I got a chapter with you to be privileged to be in the right seat of that plane and watching then the momentum pick up. And watching the lettuce and tomatoes start to play themselves out, and split notes and substitution of collateral, and all of these things that the toolbox side just started getting used more and more. Take me from there now. We're fast forwarding. Let's just say a decade.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Okay.
Give me a flavor of the life as you know it today. You have a portfolio. You have a real estate company. I want to hear the evolution in the last decade professionally.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, a lot of things going through my head, and I don't want to make this too long-winded of an answer.
Hey, we're going to go 3 hours if we can.
All right, yeah,
so
feel
keep
free
going.
to edit. So, like I said, the real estate journey was an ends to a means of financial freedom, right? But I never really considered what happened once I got to that point, right? And so I think I hit this point of getting there, but also feeling like I could always do more. I mean, I think that was part of my personality is like, you can always do more, right? And like you can always be better and do better. I think my mom and dad kind of ingrained that in me a little bit, but and that's great. I like that about myself, but it also it kind of put these blinders on me of, well, yeah, but what about appreciating where you've gotten, and with that specific goal of financial freedom, it was like, well, to what end? I mean, once you get financial freedom, how much financial part of that do you need and what kind of freedom are we looking for? And so I think at some point it hit me that, I did this for a reason, and I want to, I need to honor that reason, and there was something inside of me that was telling me that I was really resisting unwittingly. I didn't realize it, but I was kind of like, I felt like that was something that was limiting me, or that it was something that I'd kind of quieted for a long time, that maybe the laziness or whatever, right? And I labeled it as that. But I think it was actually something saying, you never really wanted to be, it wasn't that you wanted to be a real estate guy, right? It was that you wanted to have the ability to do whatever that is. But I never defined that. And so it was a hard period for me trying to define what that was going to look like. But I think part of what helped me get to that point, and part of what that voice inside of me was the fact that I had 2 young kids and a family. And, the more I kind of considered that, the more I realized that that was something that was really important to me. Was I think what it was the day I dropped my son off at kindergarten, and I was like, whoa, like those 5 years felt like kind of a slog. But now that he's in kindergarten, it felt like it went by really fast. And I finally realized what everyone was telling me, it goes by fast. I'm like, man, it did. And I've been working my butt off for these first 5 years. I've been trying to be present for my son as much as I could. But I think I want to be even present even more than I have been. I already forgot your question, so I don't even know where I'm going with this now.
No,
but
keep going. Yeah, the last decade. Yeah,
yeah, the last decade.
The evolution.
The evolution. So I think around that point, I realized I'm not done with real estate, but I think I want to. I'd already started backing away, but I didn't realize that I had. And so I think finally I consciously was like, okay, I don't need to be as intense about this anymore. And the less intense I became, the less intense I wanted to be because, well, just for a lot of reasons. But I think the overriding thing is just, for me, what I've realized is this phase of life it's just all about being with my kids as much as I can and experiencing them as much as I can while they're still there. That's just important to me. It just is. Mm-hmm. So real estate wise, I'm still doing a deal here or there, but not putting a ton of effort into seeking it out. I'm spending a lot of time, like I said, with the kids, coaching their sports. And I'm just spending a lot of time just trying to enjoy life, spend time with friends, traveling when we can. It's becoming more complicated as the kids get older, but find experiences for Mikayla and I as well as them that we can all do together. And then just explore, what other things are out there, whether it be hobbies or just try new things. I mean, that's really what I'm enjoying right now is just experiencing life in different ways and being open to life in different ways. And I don't know. I think that's kind of
I remember
how things have evolved.
A call, it seemed like, I don't know, I'm going to probably mess this up, but I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago at this point of you were doing research on kind of an inner Puget Sound boat and our mutual love for Boston whalers came up, and I think you ended up with like a 17-footer or so, something like that, whaler. Yeah,
18-foot outrage.
I have one parked right over there too.
Nice.
But that the crab fisherman that didn't go fishing with his dad. Now I'm assuming that you've taken your kids out crabbing in your boat in the Sound, and those memories, those moments of out there and bobbing around out in the water, pulling up a crab pot, and of course you're always going to have something in it. It's not like deer hunting where you might not see something for 3 days, but here you're probably going to catch something. And there it is, and I think of those exact memories, and the look on the face of, Teak holding a big crab, it's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. It's a different currency. Yeah. It's a whole different closing. Yeah. It's something that you go, wow, how do I, we can get a closing and there's your check, and we got to still pay some taxes on it, but okay, that's how this came out. Mm-hmm. But this currency is a whole different kind of currency.
It is, yeah. And I think also right now, my kids give me purpose also. I want to just raising them into being the best people that they can be, that I can help them be is so big to me. And, a lot of it is selfish. I want to experience them, and I want to experience this phase of life where we get to be a family all under one roof. But being able to give them some real, just solid energy and time, and even when they're at school, being able to put some good energy into thinking about, how can I guide these kids as best as I can through different situations or whatever it might be. And I fail all the time. I mean, I don't feel like I'm that great at it, but I'm trying, you know, and it's a role I take pretty seriously. Yeah.
Well, I admire that. I truly admire that. I think that, well, it's somewhat convicting hearing what you're saying, because when with a herd, I have, I have a big herd, and it feels as though we've done the divide and conquer thing probably more than you can kind of buy into that and go, well, this is my role and this is your role. But I like that you've attended to both roles, and that with a couple and your bride, is she still pursuing her own education and her own passion for counseling?
Yeah, she is. She enjoys it, and I think she likes having some time there to do that. But she's backed off from it a little bit, and actually, we're taking our first little dive into the Airbnb world, which has really been motivated by her. That's something that she's been really interested in for a while. So we're giving that a go, and so she's backed off a little bit in favor of putting some more time into that. See how that experiment goes, because she's liking what she's doing, but I think it's like a lot of things. You do too much of it, and it can get a little dry, or monotonous. Maybe it's the better word. So this allows her to mix things up a little bit.
You have a real estate brokerage with your brother.
Yeah.
Tell me about that evolution in your life, and how is your brokerage set up to serve the purpose of what you both are trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, initially, I'd gotten my real estate license, and that was mostly just to save on some commissions, because I knew I had some sales coming up. But with the idea that, maybe there's some opportunity there for another income stream or way to kind of leverage the knowledge I've built up over the years of the market and real estate sales. So I had that license, and then eventually, some friends had come to me and said, "Hey, will you just help me out with this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, love to." And it was fun. It was an easy way. I mean, sometimes it's just these negotiations, and getting to the point of even having a negotiation to have is so much work. And it was kind of fun to just go through a transaction where I felt like I was really helping somebody, and I had this knowledge that was useful to these people. And also, having been a buyer of real estate for so long, I felt like I really could relate to what these people were going through, in their head and emotionally. So that made it fun too. And so I, dabbled a little bit, and then I started doing more and more. And it's still, for me, a pretty organic thing. If the deals come, they come, and I'm happy to help people. But got to the point with my brother where it was like, well, hey, and this was a lot, had a lot to do with your encouragement too. But it just made sense. I never wanted to build a big brokerage. I'm not super interested in that for me, where I'm at. But the idea of having our own brand made a lot of sense. And then, certainly you're not paying out as much with your splits and all that stuff. I don't know that I'm making a ton of money by having the brokerage, but it's probably a little bit financially advantageous and not too much more work. So, so I think primarily it was just control the brand, be able to promote a brand that we own.
Right.
Made a lot of sense.
Right.
So, yeah.
Have you been buying real estate with your brother as well? Do you guys collaborate on acquisitions?
Not really. I mean, a little bit to where we'll help each other out, but we haven't really gone down that road. And I think it's just because it just hasn't really happened. It just hasn't. We haven't found ourselves in a place where that seemed really advantageous or made a lot of sense. It's not that we wouldn't. Having the brokerage together has gone great. I think we work well together. It's just we've looked at things together, but no, we never have actually done any deals together.
I saw a bird recently that I'm assuming closed, that was a venture into a mixed-use space, restaurant, lower floor, plans to do some remodeling upstairs. Is this the Airbnb? Is this what's that's becoming? Walk me through that deal. It's very well located, great 2-story mixed-use building. Tell me about that.
So, so the backstory on it, I guess, that's like aside from the property, the real estate itself, is that, like I said, Michaela for years has been saying, let's get an Airbnb. I think that'd be fun. And I've kind of been like, I don't know, maybe. And I looked at stuff and considered it, but it just never really panned out. But then, around a year ago, we were like, man, that would be kind of cool if we had like a little apartment just really close to our house. Someone comes into town, we could just put them up in it. And, we don't mind hosting people in our house, but then we thought it'd just be a more comfortable way for people to come visit us. We, again, coming from out of town originally, all of our family's out of town other than my brother, a lot of friends that live outside of town. So anyway, so that was going through the back of our head. And then there's a building right in they call it the Fountain District in Bellingham that I really like. And I looked up in the window and, those eyes of opportunity, I see this handwritten for rent sign.
Right.
And instantly I'm like, okay, all right, let's just call it. And I saw it and I kept meaning to call it and just kept forgetting, but it's close enough to our house and on a route that I go past enough that I saw it probably 4 or 5 times. And I'm like, okay, I got time. I'm just going to do it right now. So
do it right now.
Right. So I call him up and I was really upfront right out of the chute. I'm like, well, I don't want to actually live in this apartment, but what I do want to do is rent it from you and then do an Airbnb. Here's why. I told him, like, we want to have friends and family stay there, and then we'd probably just rent it out in between just so that we're not, shelling out rent every month. And it was a little older woman, and she's kind of like, She's like, I've never even thought about that. I never even heard about that. I didn't know you could even do that. And she's like, but that's interesting. Let me talk to my husband. And I didn't hear from him. And so I called back maybe a few days later and I said, what do you guys think? And she's like, well, I talked to my husband and we think it's weird, but we'll talk to you at least, I'm like, okay. So I told Michaela, I'm like, hey, here's what happened. I called him. I told him that we might want to go Airbnb it. And she's like, that's dumb. She's like, they're not going to do that. Why would they rent this place to you? I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to help you. This is all the things you want,
It's called a sandwich lease.
Can we play it out? Jeez. She's like, fine. So we go out there. We meet with them. We walk through the apartment, and then they take us down to this office building right next door that they own. And they have these chairs set up, and we sit there. And the conversation starts unfolding. I'm like, here's what I'm thinking. And I start bringing up owner financing and all this. And, it was early on in the conversation. I just met the husband, but like it kind of felt like it was a natural progression at that point. And they were really agreeable to all of it. And it's funny because Michaela, she actually said she was looking around the room for cameras, feeling like she was on Punk'd or something like that. Because she's like, talking all this trash about how stupid this is, how they'd never go for it. And then everything's just falling into place.
She thought you had this set up to just surprise.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Like I'd called him ahead of time and be like, hey, just go with it. You don't have to do any of it, But yeah, it all just started clicking. And, there were some obstacles. It wasn't that easy. But fast forward, we did put together an owner finance deal together.
To buy the whole building.
Yeah, so the building is downstairs. There's an existing restaurant. It's a breakfast restaurant that's been there for a while. I view it as kind of like a staple in the community, sort of a landmark. You could say to most people, hey, do you know where Diamond Jim's is? And they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, it's here from there, right? Mm-hmm. And then upstairs, there's 2 apartments, and it's old. It's like I can't remember the year now, but it's early 1900s. And so the 2 apartments upstairs were pretty rough. One is it's a 1-bedroom technically, but we've kind of turned it into more of a studio. And then the other one is a 3-bedroom. Both of them have 1 bathroom. The footprint of the building is like 2,500 square feet. So the studio's, I don't know, 600, 500 square feet, something like that. And so, so we decided to remodel them. And, it's finding that balance of how far do you take it without it being a stupid business decision, right? So we've had to navigate that. We're kind of on the tail end now. So we just got all the furniture in there. So now we're getting pictures up and drapes hung and that type of thing. So hopefully soon we'll be live with those.
That's awesome. And the restaurant has a lease downstairs?
Yeah, so that's been fun. The owner of that business actually was wanting to sell out of that. And so part of the negotiation was, finding someone who was taking over that lease. And oddly, that was kind of both sides. Like I wanted that, but also the sellers wanted that because they wanted to make sure that they were setting up the owner of that business for success. And it just so happens that my neighbor and very dear friend owns a breakfast restaurant in downtown Bellingham. And I'm talking to him about all of this, and he's kind of like, well, actually, we might want to own this restaurant. I'm like, no way. So we kind of finagled it to where he was able to take that over, which has been actually fun. It's been good. It's when it works out that you can do business with people you like, it can be a good experience. It has its challenges for sure, but it's been good.
I think it's interesting that when your mind becomes open, this was a apartment for rent sign.
Yeah.
But has grown into, a couple units to rent upstairs, Airbnb, a commercial space that you own that you've been able to work out a whole arrangement with your neighbor. I mean, one thing turns into a much bigger thing sometimes if we just see it as a clue. The eyes of opportunity. We did one together, but I've spent many days throughout this country, one-on-one with a great friend, a great student, to say, okay, let's go into your investment area and let's just look at it. Let's study it. Do you see this? Do you see this? That's a phone call. That's a phone call. All these clues, they're everywhere. Waldo is in this picture. Yeah. I'm certain of it. But it's like we talked earlier, it's getting the ability to see what you're looking for. And then once you have that, doors open, opportunities everywhere. You just have to see the little clues. Yeah. So I think that's awesome.
It is fun. I mean, it's fun when you, that one I knew. I mean, you never know, right? But it's funny when you recognize like, I had a good feeling early on, like your intuition develops a lot, right?
Absolutely.
And what looked like a doe, all of a sudden, you know pretty quickly it's a buck. It's a legal buck, right? And
right.
And that does. I mean, it's just. I think it's just a skill that develops over time. The more you do it,
experience.
And when I was young, you encouraged me, just keep going out, just keep doing it, and keep throwing those hooks in the water. And what I realized is that if nothing else, it's just practice, right? Like it doesn't feel like you're making any progress a lot of times, but you are, because you don't get to that point where you can see that buck unless you're out there glassing constantly, right? Until you've looked at enough rocks or overlooked enough deer that you then realize to be a buck that you could harvest.
In basketball, at a certain point, I think they call it court time.
Yeah.
Right. That, okay, you know what you need to do now. Now just miles on the hardwood. Just put it together.
There's no substitute for experience. Yeah.
Right. Just out there doing it. And I think that can be accelerated with your awareness of what you're trying to do, the debriefing mechanism of everything you do, debrief it. What did I learn? What went right? What didn't go right? In other words, treat it like a classroom so that there's an evaluation of every experience.
Yep.
And therefore we take that into the next one versus just sort of blow it off and we're right back at square one. I think that you can be very intentional about the practice to draw out of it, what were the lessons here? Create an ism to where it's embedded in your brain so that now that becomes you in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It becomes intuitive.
Absolutely.
At some point, you're not thinking about it.
Exactly.
The other thing I would say too, I mean, all the things you just mentioned as far as experience, but another one that has been really valuable to me is other people's experiences, right? And so that would go back to one of the valuable things about power players, and not necessarily just power players, but power players is an easy way for you to meet people that are actually doing the things you want to do, right? I mean, you can find them through real estate clubs as well, but when you get to talk to other people about deals they've done, I think not only do you get an understanding, but just those the what do you call it, the eyes of opportunity, right, become that much wider because you're like, well, they did it. Like if they can do it, I can do it.
Right.
I mean, everyone should be able to have that belief, right? Like, sure, we all have different skills and things, but if someone else can do things, I mean, if I can do these things, then anyone else listening to this can do things.
But
I always
at the very
felt that
least,
way.
it begs the question: if they've done this, and for some reason I feel trepidation around this, or I think, okay, why? What is it that you feel you're lacking? What is it that you feel they have that you don't? And maybe it is something that you need to dig in more. You need to improve your game. You need to learn this or that they've mastered and you haven't yet. But there's the motivation to say, wow, they've done the hard work and they've mastered this, and that's why they're getting the results they're getting. So, okay, what do I study? What do I do? How do I lean in to become better at this? I think it's easy to just, and I think many people do it, quite honestly, is that they look at it and go, wow, that hill looks too high to climb. I'm just gonna stay here. And that's a choice. Just high achievement's a choice. Mediocre's a choice. So I think being around people that encourage and are willing to help is a big deal. Yeah.
Well, because it's hard. It's a difficult journey. At least it was for me. I guess I can't speak for everybody, but what went in between me deciding I wanted to become financially free and find whatever success I wanted in real estate to, the point where I felt like I'd found some success, whatever that was. It was a lot of work and a lot of time, and there was sacrifice. I mean, I spent weekends going out, whole weekends, just, hunting for those opportunities or handwriting bird letters because I couldn't afford to pay someone else at the time, or not going on vacations because I was saving my money because I wanted to be able to make a down payment or, whatever it was. At the time, that was really hard, and it took a lot, like a lot of discipline to do that. And so to be able to be around other people that are either going through the same things or trying to accomplish the same things as you I think it's huge. I mean, it's just so nice feeling like someone's going through the same thing.
Yeah. I wish I could make a soundbite and just play it on these things where they play it 50 times right in front of you, back it up, play it again. But that what you just said there, AP, is that this was hard. This was hard.
Yeah.
I think that just that alone takes me out to deep ocean as I observe messaging out there. That the messaging is this is the easy way to do it. This is just add water. It's so easy. 3 easy steps to this and that. I don't even know how to think about easy. Nothing's ever been easy. in my mind. And I feel that that's a common thread toward those who find this place now where they have options in their life. A common thread is this was not easy. It was the opposite of easy. It was dedication and focus and sacrifice and these words. And so it makes you ask the tough question, am I willing? Am I willing to really lean in? That to me is where it's fair. That if you want to do certain things, it's not going to be easy. So how badly do you want it? Are you willing? That's an inside job. That is a decision only a person can make for themselves. And I don't care what it is. That's what's on the table. The expectation that this is going to be easy or insta doesn't exist. Yeah.
You know what's funny though too is I used to think I wanted that, and I think it's human nature to want that. You know, I mean, sure, if you could get whatever it is you're after and snap your fingers and it's there, right? Like that's why everyone likes the idea of a genie in a bottle, right? Like it's appealing, sure, but the whole mantra of it's the journey, not the destination. I mean, when I was in the thick of it, I was like, no, I just want this destination. This sucks right now. This is a slog, right? Like,
beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, beam me up. But man, you get through it and you realize how true that is. I don't know that you can fully grasp how true that is until you've like arrived at the other end of something and harvested the rewards that came just from that journey, you know? Because sorry, I'm just thinking about that Miley Cyrus thing. Have you guys seen that? It's the journey, not the destination. sorry. We'll look at it later. Anyway,
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. Anyway, it's so true. I mean, it's just when you everything. I realized through this process that like everything that is important is between your ears, right? And that's what you gain through the journey is so much between the ears, right? You learn about who you are, you learn about what you're capable of, you develop who you are, you become more than you were, you grow. And I don't know anyone who can go through that type of an experience, a growth experience, where you learn about yourself, you learn about the world around you, and not find just extreme value in that and look back on that with anything other than just appreciation, you know? So, easy does sound nice. It really does, but a lot more comes out of the difficult,
The sound bite that is forever emblazoned in my head was this father figure in this inclement setting is learn to love what most people won't tolerate.
Yeah.
And that's so different than learn to put up with it. No. Learn to love it.
Yeah.
Like, this is difficult, and I love it.
Yeah.
That I'm almost drawn to the sound of muscle stretching, like but how do you do that? Well, it's in between your ears. It's your mind can say, this is the tougher route. And sometimes that's taking something on, and sometimes that's letting something go. Life has all these variations of direction, but growth is never easy.
No.
And so to embrace that reality, I think, is a big part of what gets you there, is that you weren't expecting anything else. This is going to be hard.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you got to lean into it.
Yeah.
I heard it called too type B fun. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Type B fun? Yeah. So there's fun, right? There's like whatever it is, playing golf, right? That's type A fun.
Right.
You go out and you're just having fun. Then there's type B fun, which is you're out backpacking and the whole time you're like, your shoulders are hurting from your backpack, it's heavy and it starts to rain, right? Your legs hurt. You just stepped in a puddle. Now your foot's wet, right?
Right.
And the whole time you're just like, what am I doing? But then by the end of it, you always look back and you're like, that was awesome.
That was
so much fun, right? That's type B fun.
Type B fun.
Yeah, I think it's usually
Painful
like
fun.
Yeah. But when you can, I think it helps. The reason I call it type B fun, and the reason I thought it was worth stopping to say something about it is, I think it helps when you define it, right? When you can put a name on it. I think knowing that it's type B fun that you're in the middle of helps you appreciate it for what it is, right? Because that suffering can be a form of fun, right? If you just look at it as suffering, then it's suffering. But if you recognize, like, man, this is part of this journey I'm on. Like, I'm backpacking right now. My foot's wet. It's raining. Like, I'm tired. I hurt my knee a little bit, right? Like, it all just kind of, that's like patina on the journey, right? It's enriching that experience, right? As opposed to going on a hike where you walk to the end and back, nothing happens, right? No pain. You maybe saw like a beautiful mountain setting or something, right? Like, but you can find those driving around on Highway 20 pretty easily, right? It doesn't mean
Almost
you had an
forgettable.
experience. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You take a picture just because you know you're going to forget it, right?
Right.
So type B fun, I think it's worth putting a label on it, right? So we remember that that's the type of fun we're having.
That's tremendous. That's well, and along these lines, this is the perfect segue. As long as we're philosophizing a bit, I've called you and referred to you at least in, I'll bet you I've given at least 100 talks where I reference the great philosopher Petz.
Oh yeah.
And one of the exercises I think we did at some Power Player alumni, or I forget exactly where it came out, but I think it was a Power Player alumni that you were tasked on creating a statement, an ism, a credo, as it were, and you won the award for the brevity award.
Yeah.
Right? because yours was 2 words, and it was impress yourself. I'd like you to explain that.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was coming up with a philosophy to live by, I think, is at least how I took the assignment. Right. Right. And I remember you kept getting after me. Petz, where's this at? AP, where is it at? I need to hear it. I'm like, I'm working on it, GP. I'm working on it, because I didn't want to just, there's a lot of meaningful phrases you could come up with where you're like, oh yeah, I like that, whatever. But I really wanted it to be something that resonated with me. And then I just remember I was sitting there one morning, because I was diligently, like, every day thinking on this and journaling about it and going deep with it. And one day it just kind of hit me, impress yourself. And what it means to me is, I don't know if I've ever really gotten very good at articulating it, and partly because I think it works for me in a lot of different ways. I can look at it from a lot of angles and see how it makes sense to me as a philosophy. But I think you see a lot of impressing other people out there, right? Like the cars people drive, the clothes they wear, the houses they buy, the people that they try to be around, the things they try to say. And I get it. I mean, I get why people do it. Like, it feels good when other people, think highly of you. I understand why people go about it. But, I think we all, when we really think about it, recognize that that's superficial, right? But when we think about how to impress ourselves, we're thinking about what is it inside of me that if I were to get outside of myself and look at what I've done or am doing or am being, where I would be impressed by that, right? So I'm impressing myself from the outside looking in, to where if I was watching my life like a movie, I would be like, yeah, that's great, and maybe that's the best way to look at it, as a film. You're watching a film, right? Do you want to look at that film, you being the main character, and that main character is ho-hum or mundane or whatever? I mean, maybe you do. Maybe that's entertaining. Or do you want them to be doing, you fill in the blank, right? And so that phrase is unique to anyone who wants to think through it, right? Impressing myself might be one thing, and I get to fill in that blank. And I'm the only one that gets to define that. I think those are the best kinds of things, are the ones where we're not worried about anything external, right? It's all about what's internal. And I do get to decide, you know, maybe it is a film. Maybe I do want to watch a film where the person isn't doing much. That's my choice. You know, I get to make that choice, but at least I've considered it. And maybe that impresses me. It could. Or maybe it's something else, you know?
Right.
And that can change every day. I can think about what's going to impress me today, right? What for the next 16 hours or whatever that I'm awake, what's going to impress me? And then I can think of in the context of the year or the next decade, or I can think of in the context of this moment. I can think of in the context of a role as a parent or anything, you know? How am I going to approach that to where I can look at it from the outside looking in and be impressed by what happened there? That doesn't mean, you know, you're not going to fail at it, but at least you thought about it.
I had a friend recently, unbeknownst to me, film me swinging a golf club.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing it.
Okay.
Went up to a par 3. Did everything the way I normally would do it, right? Had no idea it was being filmed. The end of it, sort of, it wasn't even the point, because you couldn't, once I hit the ball, you couldn't even see where it went. But I got this perfect straight on view of my takeaway, contact, follow through, or lack thereof. It was horrific. I saw it and I was like, I literally felt this spittle come into my throat, thinking, oh my God.
Burn it.
Is it that bad? I looked like I was 100 years old, hunched over this ball. It looked like I was throwing up on my shoes. It was so bad. I couldn't get it out of my head the rest of the day. And then I'd approach the ball like, okay, just try to not look like that. Just try to. I don't care where the ball goes. Look different than that, you know? It was so bad. It was not impressive. And what do I think of in that moment? I literally thought of AP, impress yourself. Well, I did not impress myself. It was, but the movie, when we watch it, that can be a tough one to sit through.
Sure.
You may need to get ready for that. But I think that in the honest questioning of that, the door opens to growth. Because we look at it and we go, okay, that was impressive. And then we replay the film from a different day and you go, that was not impressive. That you were an asshole. What was that about? You know, go get a lesson, right? Metaphorically, right? And I think just the awareness of this is a goal, and that you are the creator and the evaluator. It doesn't matter. You can have everybody in the world think you're as impressive as hell, but if you know you're not, you're not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that self-evaluation and taking this game of life that seriously and evaluating, I think is just an awareness that great people do, and you do it. And that's fantastic. Wow. Well, every one of these ends with a consider challenge. And not only is this your story and your philosophy, but it is the consider challenge of our time together. And I can't think of anything else that would be more worthy of consideration than the question that this philosophy begs. Are you impressing yourself? Is the consider challenge. And from the day I heard it, it's permanently ingrained and very easy to memorize. But what a challenge when you look at life that way. And I'd like to couple it with the idea that if what you see when you really dive into this is a little shocking, there's the opportunity is yours to change. Mm-hmm. In other words, that's the point of considering, are you or are you not impressing yourself? Because if the answer is, this isn't impressive, Jim Rohn says all significant change has a precursor of disgust, mm-hmm. where you look in the mirror, as it were, and go, I've got a better game in me. Mm-hmm. This isn't good. Mm-hmm. And so you change. I think on the flip side of that coin is when you look at the film and go, well done. Mm-hmm. You stretched, you pushed, this is progress, and you know it inside. That's awesome too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're all flawed.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it needs to be a forward-looking thing because, we can all look back and pick apart anything we've done in our days or our day, mm-hmm. There are times where I do things and I instantly regret it, and
right.
I know that wasn't anything that impressed me in that moment,
right.
but
right.
but you're right. I think it's just about what we do moving forward. And I think if we use it though as a way to think about what we want to do, mm-hmm. or what we're doing in that context, whether it be, in any context, I guess, but, mm-hmm. And how we want it to direct our actions, from now on.
Going
right?
forward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably where it's most valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, AP, chalk another journey up in the airplane. Yeah. Yeah. We've been at this for a while, and I so appreciate you making the trip to World Headquarters to log this in, the challenges I think that you very humbly delivered will resonate with people. This is one to get out a notepad and take some ism notes because there were many of them in there. So thank you for that. And thank you again for being with this great podcast. I look forward to our next time together. God bless.